Hey, welcome to Bionic Business, the podcast for online entrepreneurs ready to leverage AI and agents to move the needle and scale revenue and grow profits. There is a massive difference between the entrepreneurs winning with AI right now and those who are getting left behind. That difference is not luck. It is not who has the fanciest tool. It is not chasing hype, and is definitely not about mega prompts. The key difference is strategy. Knowing what to do, what to skip, and staying ahead. Let's get into it. Every online entrepreneur that I work with hits the same wall eventually, which is that they've got automations and agents running, maybe an email triage agent, a lead score agent, an agent that monitors competitors, and so on. So all the individual pieces are working, but they're still kind of drowning in stuff to do and things to look at and things to take care of. And even if you have a team, right, it might even be worse because now you've got agent outputs piling up and Slack messages from 5 direct reports that are human, right? So 3 project updates that don't quite match, a team lead who flagged something 2 days ago that got buried under everything else, meeting notes that nobody synthesized yet, and so a sales rep who's updated the CRM but didn't connect the dots to what the competitor watch agent caught the same day. So this mixture between humans and agents, it can quickly become a mess. You got information everywhere, but the insight is nowhere to be found. So what is this founder or online entrepreneur supposed to do, right? Check 5 different dashboards every morning or read through every agent output, keeping track of each team member and so on. It adds up. And somehow you're supposed to synthesize all of this into here's what actually matters for my business this week, this month, this quarter, and so on. All you've done really is just create a different kind of overwhelm. But that's why the chief of staff agent exists. And is the one agent I think every online entrepreneur should build as soon as possible. So a chief of staff agent sits above your operations. It is your agents and your team, if you have a team. It doesn't do operational work. It keeps tabs on things and synthesizes all of it. So it is connected to your entire business, right? Your tools, your data, agent outputs, and the systems that your team works in. And it does one thing really well, which is that it tells you what you need to know to make better decisions. Think about what a human chief of staff does for a CEO. They monitor what's happening across the organization. They filter out the noise. They surface the things that actually need the CEO's attention. And they prepare the CEO for important decisions by gathering relevant context. They talk to every department head, every team head, so that the CEO doesn't have to chase updates. And that's what this chief of staff agent does. So, for example, it monitors things like other agents, right? What did your email triage agent flag this week? What did your competitor watch agent catch? What leads did your agent scorer identify as hot? So the chief of staff reads all of that and pulls out what's significant. There's also your team's work. Like, what did your sales lead log in a CRM? What did your project manager update in Asana or Monday? What showed up in meeting notes? So the chief of staff agent reads all these the same way it reads agent outputs. It doesn't care where the information came from, a human or an agent. It just synthesizes all of it. Things like your sales pipeline, what deals are moving forward, what deals are stuck. Your marketing performance, like what content is getting traction, what campaigns are underperforming, any signals that are worth paying attention to. Things like your competitors, pricing changes, new launches, messaging shifts, hiring patterns, and your market especially too, like emerging trends, regulatory changes that affects you, shifts in customer behavior. Things are happening in your space that you should really know about, but you don't need a ton of information. You just need the right kind of information so that you can keep the vision in place and your strategic decision-making functioning. Every week or whenever you want it, an agent like this can synthesize all of this and brief you on it. Tell you what happened, tell you what needs your attention. And it might only be 4 or 5 things in a given week out of 100 things you could be doing, right? And so it's kind of helping you with decisions that you should be making now and in the future. Now, if you're a solo operator running agents, the chief of staff synthesizes your agent workforce. That alone is valuable. But if you have a team, even a small team of 2 or 3 people up to, 10, 20, 30 and above, the chief of staff agent becomes something bigger. It becomes the layer between you and your entire operation without that layer becoming an obstruction or keeping you ignorant of things or blocking things from your view. So your team members communicate inconsistently. Some people update the project management tool religiously, others drop things in Slack, some send emails. One person prefers to tell you in a meeting, and so the information exists, but it's scattered across channels and formats and people's habits. The chief of staff agent does not care about the format. It reads the CRM, the project tools, the meeting notes, the Slack channels. It aggregates what your team is producing and synthesizes it alongside what your agents are doing. You get one view of everything. So it's very good at catching things that your team won't self-report, right? If your product manager flagged 3 different client delays over 2 weeks, but hasn't connected them as a pattern yet, the chief of staff agent can. If your sales leads close rate dropped 15% this month, but they haven't raised it yet as an issue, that agent can surface that in a briefing for you. And if 2 team members are working on related problems without talking to each other, well, the chief of staff agent will let you know so you can see that. It also preps you for conversations with your team. Before your weekly one-on-one with your head of sales, for example, it pulls the pipeline data, recent deal notes, any flags from the week. So you walk into that meeting ready and knowing the context instead of spending the first 10, 15, 20 minutes just getting caught up. And so that changes the quality of the conversation. You're discussing strategy and blockers from minute 1 instead of just trying to get your bearings. And so your team doesn't need to change their behavior for this to work. The chief of staff reads the tools they're already using. They keep updating Asana or Monday or something else, and the chief of staff agent is there just taking a look, checking things out. And whatever the logging happens in the CRM or elsewhere, spreadsheets, meeting notes, whatever it is, the chief of staff agent sits on top of all of that and just keeps tabs and catches things and synthesizes it into a briefing for you. So you're not ignoring your team and you're not replacing your check-ins. You're walking into every conversation already informed. That makes you a better operator and a better leader. So let's quickly talk about the 2 modes out of many options that your chief of staff agent can use and run with. So mode 1, weekly executive briefings. This could run on a schedule, like every Sunday evening or Monday morning, whatever works for you. The agent reviews everything that happened in the past week, filters it through your priorities, and delivers a briefing. And that briefing is not like a data information dump. It is structured around what you actually need to know, like priority items that got flagged as significant during the week, decisions that need your attention, opportunities that surfaced, risks to monitor. It's just a quick scan of how each area of your business is performing. So you read that over, coffee, and you do it in 15 minutes, and you'll know what your week looked like before, and therefore also what your upcoming week needs to look like. You know what needs your focus. So you're not scrambling to catch up or wondering what you missed. Mode number 2 is decision prep packet. This is on demand. When you are facing a significant decision, you trigger the agent and tell it what you're deciding. So let's say you're considering whether to delay a product launch or reduce scope to hit the original date. You message your chief of staff something like, hey, decision prep, Q1, launch timeline. And then the agent goes to work. It pulls everything relevant from your knowledge base, like what do you know about your competitor timing? What did beta users say about the features in question? What are the marketing commitments already made? What's the current pre-registration count? What did your product leads say in the last Tuesday meeting? It then structures all of that into a decision for you to make. So here's what we know. Here's what we don't know. Here are your options. Here are the trade-offs for each option. That way, you're not starting from scratch, trying to gather context and just get your bearings. The agent already did that work. And so you can focus all your mental energy on the actual decision-making that only you can make. Let me walk you through what one of these briefings contains. This is a structure that I would use. So one, you got priority items. These are things that got flagged as significant during the week. Maybe your meeting debrief agent noted that a client expressed frustration with the response time, or maybe your competitor watch agent caught a major pricing move, or your ops lead updated a project status to at risk in like Asana or something. These go at the top because they need attention. Two would be decisions needed. What's waiting on you? If the competitor raised prices, do you adjust your positioning? If a product timeline is slipping, do you delay or reduce scope? So the briefing identifies what decisions are on deck and gives you the context for each of them. Three would be opportunities surfaced. So what showed up this week that you might want to take action on? It might be a partnership inquiry that matches your ICP. Maybe it's content that's getting unusual engagement or a gap in the market that your research agent has identified. Four would be risks to monitor. What should you be watching? Client health signals, churn risks with your customers, team capacity issues or market shifts that could affect you. Things that aren't urgent, but they shouldn't also be ignored, right? These are things that you might otherwise just miss, and then they fester for months or weeks, and then all hell breaks loose, right? Five would be team and department highlights. So a quick scan across different areas. How's your pipeline doing? How did marketing perform last week? Any operational issues? And if you have people, this section also flags things like which direct reports might need FaceTime this week, and then where capacity is getting tight, or whether any cross-team dependencies are at risk. So this gives you the snapshot without having to dig through multiple dashboards or chase updates from 5 different people. And then finally, you have week ahead. So what's coming up? Important meetings, deadlines, action items that are due, so that you know what's on your plate, right? The whole thing takes maybe, 10 minutes to read, something like that, and you walk away knowing exactly where to focus. So the structure I just described works whether you are a solo entrepreneur or running a, 25, 30 person team. What changes is what the chief of staff is pulling from and how the briefing reads. So if you're a solo entrepreneur operator with agents, the briefing is mostly synthesizing agent outputs, market signals, and pipeline data. It's your business dashboard, right, in a narrative form. And if you have a team, 5, 10 people or more, then the briefing adds a layer. Now it's pulling from what your team logged in, like your CRM or project management tool, what got updated, what came out of meetings. And so the team highlight section tells you which accounts need attention, which team members are stretched, and where human judgment is needed versus where agents can handle things. Right, so if you're running a larger operation with department leads, that briefing becomes genuinely executive level. Department summaries, cross-team dependencies that might cause problems, capacity recommendations. It reads like the kind of brief a $50 million company's chief of staff would prepare, except it's running for you and maybe you're less than 10 million, right? Or even less than $1 million. So, and it costs you just a few hours to set up. And the agent tech has evolved so fast and so far that the capabilities go beyond what we maybe even understand. The point is that the architecture is the same. The inputs scale with the complexity of your operation without you having to string together a 40-step automation that looks like a spaghetti thrown to the wall and things break all the time. So let me be a little bit more direct with you on this. So you can build a functional chief of staff agent today using existing tools. It's not science fiction. It's not enterprise. You don't need custom development. Although if you have available custom development to help you out, then obviously you can do a lot more and a lot faster. But the platforms exist. And there are many of them. A few of the ones that I can recommend and suggest that you start with would be something like Lindy, Gumloop, N8N if you're more technical and want full control. And I think even Make has offers that are pretty close to what the other ones do. So Lindy is often what I recommend for people who are building this. It is a no-code agent platform that handles exactly what Chief of Staff agent needs. Schedule triggers, manual triggers, reading from Google Drive or other data sources, access to tools and platforms, reasoning through context, delivering output via email or Slack. So you create the agent, you give it an agent system prompt that defines the role, how it should structure briefings, access to tools and platforms. You got to connect it to your data sources, set up the triggers, and then you're kind of up and running. A very basic version would have, for example, a weekly schedule trigger. So you point the agent at wherever your other agents store their outputs and wherever your team does their work. That could be a Google Drive folder, could be Notion, Airtable, your CRM, Slack, right? Whatever it is, wherever the work happens, like Monday or some other project management tool like Asana, just hook it up to that. And then you define what counts as significant for your business. You tell the agent how you want the briefing structured, and then you decide if you want to deliver to, I don't know, like something like email or Slack or wherever else you want it sent to. And then for the decision prep mode, you add a manual trigger. And that's when you message the agent with, like, for example, hey, decision prep, and then insert a topic that you want preparedness for. And then the agent switches into that mode, gathers context, and structures the decision. You can get 80% of the value with a setup like this. It takes a few hours of configuration and troubleshooting and testing things out, and then you have an agent that synthesizes across your business and delivers weekly briefings. Something like Gumloop can work as well, right? Especially if you're already using it for other automations. It is stronger for data extraction and web scraping, so if your chief of staff agent needs to pull in external data like competitor pricing, market research, or news monitoring, Gumloop is pretty good at handling all of that. Like I said, Make and End are options if you're more technical and want full control. They're open source and they connect to just about everything, so you can build exactly what you want, but it does require more setup. And then you have Relay and MindStudio, and just there are a ton of these platforms. But if you understand the core fundamentals, the agent archetypes that makes up the chief of staff agent, then you'll be able to set up an agent like this on any platform of your choice. Okay. And only you can decide what platform you want to use. There is no better or worse option. The best option is the one that works for you. So the tools exist. You don't need a custom development team. You don't need to wait for some future platform. You can start to build this right now. So building the agent is the easy part, but making it useful requires a few things that a lot of entrepreneurs just miss. So the first thing is that your priorities have to be defined. The agent needs to know what matters to you. So what are your top 2 to 4 priorities right now? What decisions always need your input versus what can be handled without you? And then what counts as significant for each area of your business? If you don't define this, the agent can't filter effectively. You'll get briefings that are either too noisy or miss the things that matter. The second thing is that your agents and your team need to output somewhere readable, meaning that the chief of staff synthesizes across your entire operation. So that means your agents and your humans need to be storing their outputs somewhere accessible, like a shared Google Drive folder, a Notion database, just really anything works, just as long as it's structured, right? So that all of this means that you don't have to ask your team of humans to change how they work. It means that you connect the chief of staff agent to the tools they already use, whatever CRM, project management tool, shared meeting notes, meeting platforms like Zoom or something else. If your team is already updating Asana and logging deals in HubSpot, then the chief of staff reads those. It just needs to be hooked up through either API or some other custom way of hooking it up. It's very simple. Lindy, Gumloop, they all have ways that you can actually do this very simply. And that's what the chief of staff has access to so that it can synthesize it. So that's all you got to do, right? Third thing is you need a way to flag priority items. And this is something that I refined over time, right? When other agents identify something significant, it should get flagged in a way that the chief of staff agent sees it first. I use a dedicated folder for this. Anything that lands in that folder goes to the top of the briefing. You can call the folder whatever you want, like priorities or important or flagged items. And without this, though, important things get buried in the noise. Your meeting debrief agent might note that a VIP client is frustrated, but if that's sitting in a general folder alongside 50 other meeting notes, it might not surface with the prominence that it deserves. So if your team uses something like a shared, flags channel in Slack or a priority tag in your project tool, the chief of staff agent can read those too. It gives your people a simple way to say, hey, this needs the founders, the entrepreneurs' attention, meaning your attention, without having to interrupt you directly. So once you have that chief of staff running, something shifts, right? You stop being reactive. Instead of scrambling to figure out what's happening across your business, you get a synthesized view delivered to you every week or as often as you want it to. So you know what needs attention before it becomes urgent. And your decision quality improves too. So when you're facing a significant choice, you're not starting from zero. The context is already gathered. The options are already structured. You can focus on the judgment call and not all the manual labor of research and all of that. So you get your time back, right? All that context gathering, dashboard checking, Slack scrolling, trying to stay up on top of everything. It's a lot for anyone to handle, but your agent can handle it. You read a briefing, you're informed, and you're done. Cool? So if you have a team, you become a better leader. You walk into every conversation with your team prepared. You catch patterns before they become problems, and you spend your face time on strategy and decisions and coaching your team instead of just status updates, right? That could be handled in an email or something like that. So what I found when I work with businesses, teams, and solo founders on all of this is that once they have their chief of staff agent working, they start seeing other opportunities. And they start to realize and imagine that if this agent can synthesize across my business, what else could agents handle, right? This agent becomes a gateway to thinking systematically about your entire operation. The last thing I want to say is that building a basic chief of staff agent is something you can do on your own with the platforms that I mentioned. Lindy, Gumloop, Make, Relay app, end-to-end, whatever. Pick one and start experimenting. But if you want the complete system, the exact architecture that I use, the agent system prompts and how you set up priority flagging and how to connect it to your other agents and team tools and tune it to the significance thresholds, that's what I cover inside Cortex. Cortex is the premium tier of Bionic Business. It's where I go deep on strategy and implementation, which means that you get the step-by-step guides, the templates, the specific workflows, and all of everything you might need. So what I recommend is this. Go to bionicbusiness.com and subscribe to the newsletter. That's free. You'll get my thinking on what's happening in AI, what matters, what to ignore, and a bunch of other really cool stuff. Then, when you're ready, if you want the implementation details and how to actually build these systems and upgrade to a chief of staff agent and all other agents you might need, that's inside Cortex. And I have some other stuff lined up inside Cortex that'll help you even more than just a premium subscription. So that's where the chief of staff builder lives, along with guides for other agents that I've talked about throughout this series. And I got a lot of stuff lined up for Cortex. We're going to go even deeper into agentic type businesses and agentic native businesses. But to get started, get to bionicbusiness.com, get subscribed, and then when we open up Cortex for you, get subscribed to that as well, and you'll see the options you have available to you to get something like a chief of staff agent up and running. Thanks for listening. If you want to stay ahead of what's happening in AI and agents and know what to pay attention to and applying it all to your business before your competitors figure it out, you got to subscribe to the Bionic Business newsletter. I'm in the trenches every day exploring, testing, and implementing this for my own projects and for real businesses. I only share what works and tell you what doesn't. Links in the show notes, or go to bionicbusiness.com and sign up. If you have questions or something landed differently for you, just send me a message. I read them all. See you in the next episode.